anyway, so yeah, so I see these kids at the gas station, and you know they out there clearly. It's like 10:30 at night. You know, they just messing around, just kind of hanging around, and you know, and like I'm in the gas station, so I'm like, you know what, I'm about to go, you know, go over here and say something to these kids. You know what I'm saying? Say to these boys like, yo, what y'all doing, man? And I thought about it. I said, man, if that's not, to me, in many aspects, that's not, it's such a great depiction, sad depiction of how it really is in society, where you got these young men that are just floating around with no purpose, no guidance, no mentorship, nobody saying, yo, where y'all at? Why y'all just hanging around? Like, and my thing is this, how many cars and people have pulled in and out and not said nothing to these kids? You know what I mean? Like, people just kind of avoid them. They're just kind of just riding around like, yeah, they just crazy. I'm not going to say nothing. And I understand it can be dangerous, but at the same time, like, you know, even the workers at the gas station, they weren't even doing anything. They were just kind of looking out the window and just like hoping that they leave. And it's like that. We have to get back to being like a village where, you know, the adults in the area can be like, yo, what's up, y'all? Hey, man, let's get going. You know, I mean, let's be safe out here. You know, you don't need to be just rolling around here. You know, I was thinking about that, man. I think that as a little side kind of extra thing, we just need to do a better job of taking care of and managing these kids, because I think that our society is part of the reason our society is falling apart is because we're losing this mentoring aspect. You know, these kids are getting wilder and wilder and wilder. You know, shoot, I mean, that little 6-year-old that shot the teacher. You know, I read the article about that today, and they said the kid, when they asked him about what happened, that joker said, I shot that bit dead. And that's a 6-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like, what we talking about? And like, no, we didn't kill him. He didn't kill him. But at the same time, like, the fact that that's how desensitized these kids are. And there have been multiple warnings leading up to that event. Like, the kids have been saying, yo, he got a gun in his bag. He got a gun in his bag. And the teachers just kind of like, and ignored it. It was just like, whatever. Oh, he in a bad mood. He got a gun in his bag. And they just ignored it. Like, this is the kind of stuff that a lot of these tragedies happen because we ignore these little signs and these little things in front of us. So, I mean, like I said, that was just a little something I was thinking about, I wanted to bring up to the group. Appreciate you, Kira. You said you just had a speech on that. Yeah, I mean, it's real.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the problems today is, like, people don't even raise kids anymore. They expect everyone else to do it. They expect teachers to raise them. They expect the internet to raise them. That's why they're always passing off cell phones and, you know, iPads and stuff like that, because they don't want to take any personal responsibility. And so now once these kids become, you know, young adults, you know, into their teens and early teens and stuff like that, even preteens, they're exposed to a lot more than they ever have been before, which is just the way technology works. You know, we were bound to get here eventually. But at a certain point, like, they still need guidance on what is right and what is wrong. But I mean, you know, if they're sitting there and they're looking at everything that's happening around the country, they're still fucking confused. Right. You know, they're still because they see everything that we're seeing, and I'm confused. You know, so they don't know what to believe. They don't know how to feel. They don't know how to act. And there's no one there to, you know, if people aren't sitting their children down and explaining things, or, you know, understanding like what their questions are and stuff like that. And that's what that leads to. And also, like, you know, if young men want to act like men, then they got to be treated like men. So if you're going to be out and about, you have to understand how you look. You know, perception is a very big part of reality. Unfortunately, for sure. Unfortunately, in some perspectives, but, you know, I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier about how you know, how men act with, like, in the dating world, and how they become aggressive when they have, like, their pride hurt or something like that, to the point where they'll, like, use intimidation when they get rejected or something like that. That's honestly, that's not really on women as much as it is on older men to teach younger men how to act. So that, I think that all falls under the mentorship. For sure. So I mean, it's all connected. It's all one big part of this revolving shitty circle that we have.
Yeah, no, it's wild, man. I was just, like I said, I've been thinking a lot about these kids, and then you know, and you made a good point about how, like, women, you know, a woman can only do so much trying to teach a young man about these types of things. I think that, you know, a man has to be able to step in and say, yo, you know, if you're going to get rejected, deal with it. You know what I mean? You have to get over it. You know what I mean? You're going to deal with this, how to deal with your emotions in general. I've noticed, man, a lot of these guys, man, they find their mettle in how willing they are to fight or something like that. It's like, with that, like we talked about before, like, that's not that's not what makes a man. You know, obviously, yeah, you want to be willing. You know what they say. What we always talk about: be a monster, be able to control it. You know what I mean? I think that there's so many different aspects and characteristics of being men that I think we've lost in our society. But anyway, so I was watching the oversight committee. My bad. I got so many things on my mind right now. But anyway, so I was watching the oversight committee the other day, and they were having an interview with one of the administrative people. I forget what his title was. And apparently they wrote, and like I said, I want people's opinions on this. But they wrote in a statement, he says, the term wife is problematic and should be addressed or possibly eliminated.
The term wife is problematic and it should be terminated or eliminated. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's a real, like, I think this. So man, look, so we haven't, I mean, we've only briefly, you know, we have briefly talked about some of the gender, you know, movement stuff. We kind of talked.
Yeah, hold on one second. So
Yeah.
Majestic brought up a point. She said, what women fail at is thinking that they need a male partner in order to be a male figure in a young man's life. I think what she's saying is that a lot of women don't feel that they need to, you know, they can fulfill both roles in a young man's life. And I think we're starting to see the failure in our society where there are a lot of, you know, fatherless children, and nobody can teach a young man how to be a man more than another man. Right. Unfortunately, like that's the way it is. Just like it really takes a mother to teach a daughter how to be a woman. And so when you take that father out of that role, when you start, you know, pushing men out of that role, men who want to be fathers, men who want to stay in a child's life, and you think that you can go out there and just be on your own. Well, what ends up happening in some of these cases, not all of these cases, but a decent amount of these cases, is these people will have several men come through this young man's life. So they're already being seen. They're already kind of seeing a negative aspect of adulthood. You know what I'm saying? And I think that goes both ways. I think you know, single fathers too need to realize that, you know, it probably does take a woman to raise a daughter. You know, so I think that's something that everybody needs to keep in mind. If you have children and you're going to split up from your child's other half, then you should definitely keep that in mind. Now, obviously, if one of the people is incapable of being a parent or incapable of just being a decent human being, then yeah, that's a different story, and you definitely shouldn't run out and try to replace them. So many men that are willing to be mentors to young men from church, school, after-school programs. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that would just love to just mentor, you know, younger men, just about life, just especially guys that have like made a bunch of mistakes and like they got their shit together. Like those are the guys you want to learn from. Someone who thinks that they haven't done anything wrong is not. I wouldn't think that's a very good mentor. I'd say way more along the lines of guys who have kind of fucked up their lives and then managed to claw their way back. Like those are the guys you want to sit down and talk to and be like, hey man, how do I avoid all stuff?
I think one of the challenges too, like, as you know, coming from that world, coming into youth centers and being one of those guys that mentor young guys and teenagers and all that kind of stuff, been in the trenches, you know, picking kids up at 2 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing. Like, I think one of the biggest challenges, though, is that I think culture has such a deep grip on a lot of these kids. And like I said, I can't speak to what it was like back in the day, but what I will say is I think that culture has such a deep grip on these kids that, like, I think in the past it was, yeah, there were culture influences, yeah, they were rebellious, but at the same time, at the end of the day, they knew adults were adults, and they still, they knew, even though we might rebel a little bit and push a little bit, that strong adult still can speak to my life. But now we live in a society where culture is so deeply ingrained in these kids and social media and stuff like that, where they look at you like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not, a millionaire, you're not whatever, you're not on social media, you only got 5 followers, you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff. And it actually means something to them. So when they see somebody who doesn't have the influence that they think is valuable, then sometimes it can become difficult. Because like I said, being in this environment, I've seen the kids who, you're telling them the good stuff. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, but then they turn around and they don't want to listen to you because you're not, young Fizzle, or you're not, so and so on Instagram, or you're not so and so on TikTok with 300,000 followers or whatever the case is. So it's, I think that plays a role in it. And obviously with the big move with the single parent thing, don't get me wrong, I think single parents have the ability to do all kinds of stuff. However, there is an element, like I told the kids yesterday, teaching the class, and I said, listen, the reality is that you can still be successful and you can still be, raise a wonderful child being a single parent. However, having a child and having a significant other is it's a different lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? It's very different when you're married and you have a kid as opposed to not being married and have a kid. It's just different, and so I think that element, and I'm talking about like that family structure and all that stuff. I think it's vital, and there's a lot of mentors out there, man. But a lot of these kids, I found that they have been conditioned to where, just like a lot of women are saying now, like they don't need no man and da 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 da. A lot of kids are saying things like, I don't need a father, I don't need none of that kind of stuff, because it's become so common that they're single parents. I was talking to some kids. Yeah, I was talking to kids yesterday, and I asked them who wants to get married, and they were like, none. Like two kids raised their hand in the whole class. You know what I mean? And then when I asked them who wants to have kids, and a bunch of them raised their hands, I'm like, wait, so y'all want to have the kids, but you don't want to get married? They're like, yeah, well, that's no big deal. I can have kids, and it's not that big of a deal. But like, if that's the mindset, then like, okay, you don't even see the value in having a family. And so that makes it difficult. So when somebody does come in your life, you don't even see the value of having that because it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And you said some of these women, some women, not all, they bring multiple men in the house and things like that. I would say they bring multiple males to the house. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't necessarily mean that they are men. You know what I'm saying? So what examples are they giving?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're getting terrible examples, and we as a society idolize, probably the least respectable people that we possibly can in a lot of instances, and we stick behind these people no matter what they do wrong. You see that all throughout sports, movie actors and actresses, politicians and stuff like that. Like we lift these people up on a pedestal, and like a lot of times, like these people aren't even good people, and the ones that are actually good people, nobody pays attention to because they don't think it's cool.
Right.
But I mean,
right.
Honestly, that's something we could probably go on and on about.
Yeah.
All night, man. Just
yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. I say you can always tell the direction of a society by who it prioritizes.
Yeah.
You could definitely always see that. But I do want to bring this up though, man. I do want to bring this up that we were looking at with. I do want to bring this up that I was looking at the oversight committee though. That the term wife, right? For a couple reasons, but it was brought up that the term wife was problematic and that it needed to be, looked at or possibly eliminated for being non-inclusive. And like I say, I have been on this journey dealing with, as we navigate this movement of gender, right? This gender movement. One thing I have noticed is that the emphasis on these terms, because that they're in the House committee stuff, they're trying to get rid of like the term mother is not a thing anymore. Like you have to say, they say like birthing parent, birthing person, the term wife, is problematic, like that kind of stuff. And I think that's, so I have some thoughts on that, but what do you think, bro? What is,
Well, I think it's a continuation of the attack that we've seen on the family unit. We talked about this before, where the most successful times that we have in history are built by the family unit, built by the man that goes out and works, provides for the family. And the biggest part that they don't want to acknowledge the fact that like having the mother of your children raise and nurture your children is way more effective and way more positive in those children's lives than a lot of the other things that they get. A lot better than school, better than anything you can teach them, is to have their own mother at home nurturing and raising them. And we've seen that over the years. We talked about, when we pushed women out into the workforce, we have this modern day, we want to get rid of the word birthing, we have birthing people now. We don't want to talk about women being pregnant. They're having trouble defining what a woman is. And we talk about that. It's just they've gone so far left that now they can't even stop. Like now the insanity is going to have to continue because they dug themselves into a hole and they've created this entire mania around this inclusiveness. And if you even question it, you know, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're whatever, you're a Trump supporter, like whatever floats their boat, you're a Nazi. Just because you're sitting there and like, hold on a second, like, I grew up without a father in my life. Yeah. I grew up without a father in my life, but my mother made sure that I had very strong male role models, as in other family members. I had neighbors and stuff like that, and she didn't bring a bunch of men around. She's been with the same person since I want to say since I was like 14 years old. Right. She's been with the same guy for, you know, after that for 14 years.
Right.
These young chicks don't understand how much the word wife carries so much weight. It's not just a pretty ring and a white dress. No, you're right. I think women, I think a lot of these younger women and younger girls look at being married as their way out in certain circumstances. And you see that a lot of these new talk shows that they're having where they bring on panels of girls and they're talking about like self-worth and stuff like that. And most of the time it's very young women, you know, and they put a very high value on themselves, not thinking about what they bring to the table. You know, we've talked about it before, how women are born inherently valuable and actually decrease in value over age and experience, where men increase in value because we're born valueless and have to go out and create value for ourselves, i.e. a high-paying job, be successful and stuff like that. You know, so these women are devaluing the word mother, and women are mad at women who choose to stay home. Women are mad at women who choose to stay faithful in their relationship and raise their children and stuff like that. It doesn't have anything to do about going out of the workforce. There are plenty of couples. I mean, Majestic is a mother, and, you know, she's married and they both work and they take care of their daughter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that complicated of a situation. Not to say that it's not tough. I'm not saying that you guys don't have tough times. I'm just saying that, you know, you guys do it. You do it well. Not saying that you don't have your problems. You don't have anything else going on, but like they do. And like, they've been a very good, I think they're a very good example of how a couple can interact and, you know, divide up the work. They're both in the workforce. They're both providing, and like, it's not, their child's not doing without, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
She's a mother. She's a wife.
Right.
He's a husband. He's a father.
Right.
You know?
Right. I mean, it's roles. I mean, it's roles and balance. And I think, you know, when we say, you know, I think, and Majestic made a good point about how the weight of the word wife, like when you really understand what a wife is, I mean, a wife is, I mean, I think, so before I even go there, like, I have a question for my ladies, like, from all my ladies who are in the chat. I have a question for my ladies. Like, I've been really trying to wrap this around in my brain, you know, with the gender, like, movement, things like that. There's a lot of women, you know, who support like the gender movement and, you know, the trans movement, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of women who don't. And I think in my mind, it seems as though when we say things like the word wife is problematic because it's not inclusive, or the word mother is bad because, you know, it's not inclusive, it should be a birthing person, birthing parent, that kind of thing. So to me, you know, there's a big push right now about how they're trying to erase Black history, you know, because they're trying to change facts and change words, whatever. To me, this movement on the gender side seems to be trying to erase women in so many aspects. It's really erasing what defines womanhood. You know what I mean? And it's like I said, I would love to hear feedback from somebody who maybe supports the movement. I'd be interested to hear. But like, when I look at it, I say, okay, because you think about it, if we were to turn the tables and say we started removing Black terms, right? If we started removing, I don't know, the word Black or whatever the case is, people would come out and say, oh, you're trying to erase, you know, the idea of Black people. You're trying to erase the Black history, whatever the case is. But when we remove terms like mother, we remove terms like a wife, we remove terms like when we remove that kind of stuff, you know, when we say there is no gender specific bathroom, this, you know, when we allow, you know, men and women's sports, that kind of stuff, to me, it almost like you're erasing not just women now, but you're erasing all of the historical things that women have gone through as women. biological women have gone through all of these different things to fight and toil for rights and have been in such subservient positions and the oppression of women and so on and so forth. They've gone through so much as women, and I value women. And so when I see us now in this new culture that kind of says that womanhood is now just a decision, and those terms of wife, which is like, the reality is that being a wife is the ultimate like crown, like as a woman, that's like you made it. Like, you becoming a wife is to me, I think it's awesome. I mean, to me, I think that it's amazing when a woman can be a wife, because a wife is not something for the lighthearted. A wife is not something for the weak. You know what I'm saying? A wife is a warrior. You know what I'm saying? A warrior garment, like because you're just as much a warrior as he is. It's war. It ain't easy being a wife. And so, and that's exclusive to women. Like, men cannot be wives. Like, no one else in the world can be a wife but a woman. So when we say that women, a wife rather, is problematic and it needs to be addressed or eliminated, I mean, you're literally eliminating a term that is specific to women, that only women can have. And I think that, to me, that's almost you're almost spitting in the face, in my mind. It's like I said, I love to hear people's feedback, but I feel like you're spitting in the face of all that women have gone through as women, and all the things that they strive for as women, and all the things they still deal with today as women, to then say, that term, well, everybody should be able to be a wife. No, everybody can't be a wife. Everybody can't be.
If you notice, it's really only one way, because it's not like you have a bunch of women lining up that want to be men. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really a one-way battle. I mean, I'm sure there are women that want to be men, or obviously the transition movement goes in both ways.
Right.
But at the same token, like, you just don't have a line of women, trying to take a bunch of fucking steroids, get into men's sports, try to take men's jobs that way by becoming a man. They do it for the most part as a woman. So I'm telling you, man, it starts with the war on the family unit. Then it goes to devaluing the positions in that family, saying that men, you don't need a man to be in this position, and women shouldn't have to be in that position. They shouldn't want to be in that position. And then it goes so far as to say, well, what does gender even mean now? So no, anybody can fill that role. In fact, we're even going to make up genders just to, however you're feeling for that day. So you don't have to take responsibility. If you don't want responsibility, just change your gender for the day.
Right.
So it's almost like a lazy movement, because people just don't want to do the work. They'd rather just change how they, change who they are every day to fit how they feel, as opposed to just being an adult and just realizing that sometimes you're a man and your life sucks. Guess what? Sometimes you're a woman and your life sucks, but then that's why you get together. That's why you have a man doing his thing and a woman doing her thing.
Well, it's kind of like,
I don't think
you remember that video. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, the thing is like, I don't know many people that have a problem with women in the workplace. I don't know many people. When I say not many, like, I literally I couldn't name a name off the top of my head that has a problem with a woman doing, anything that a man does. Now, I mean, you want to talk about like women in the infantry and the military. That was a very hot topic back in the day when we were in, and they just had, it wasn't until, the latter part of the war where they actually started pushing them through and stuff like that. And now people don't even talk about it anymore. It was like, it was a big fad for a couple of years. They wanted to push women through. And now it's kind of like, because they didn't want to do it. Women don't inherently want to go be men. Now, did they have some go through? Absolutely. And if you're tough enough, then by all means. But what does that mean? It's just a social experiment. You see that out in the workforce too. If a woman can do the job, then she can do the job. I mean, most adult men, I don't think care.
Yeah, you made a really interesting point, man. You said it all seems like a big social experiment, and I think the problem is that when you experiment in certain aspects, you're experimenting with people's lives. You know what I mean? You're talking about, like, we're in the Marine Corps. Like I said, let's be real. I mean, you spent more time in the infantry than I did, bro. And I just attached to the units. You were in it, and I can just only imagine dropping two women in a grunt unit. You know what I mean? Like, I can only imagine what that would be like, and it's just different. You know what I mean? It's just not. It is not something that's the same. You know what I mean? And women and men are not the same. And it is. And I think the idea that we're trying to say that doesn't exist. I don't know if you saw that conversation in the House committee with oh, she's over like the human. I think she's like a human rights administrative person for this administration. I forget what her title is. She's a black lady. She's got glasses, and you know, she's 100% for the you know, on the movement. She handles all that kind of stuff. And they were asking. He asked, I think your boy Ted Cruz. He had asked her like, "Do you think there's a difference between women and men?" And she kept saying like, "Well, you know, I mean, well, are we talking about that?" No, he just had, no, no. I just is there a difference between men and women? You know, women and men. Well, I mean, in the context, I mean, are we speaking about trans? And is there a difference between? Do you think that there's a difference? I just want a yes or no question. Like, do you think there's a difference between men and women? And my thing is this: I'm not even talking about your identity or your lifestyle or your preference or your sexual orientation. We're not talking about anything else. I'm just asking: is there a difference? And when you say there is no difference, like, it doesn't matter what you really say from that point forward, because you're operating from a place, honestly, of delusion, because that's just not true. I mean, that's just not a true statement. You know what I mean? And we can get into the details and the semantics. You could pull all kinds of genetics and all kind of stuff, but the reality is that men and women are different. You know, and that's truth. And they have different roles, and they have different struggles and different challenges. And when I look at women who have, like, I keep going back to, like, I just think about how much women have been through. You know what I mean? Just being women. I look at how, you know, think about it. 80% of the world, you go across the world. Yeah, Majestic, correct. And like in, out. I mean, what are we talking about? You know, but like you go across the world, and women are, and this is what frustrates me about like the West is luxury gives way to lunacy. You see what I'm saying? And I think that, because I remember I told you a long time ago that dude commented on the little comments. He said Americans have the luxury of arguing about things that don't matter, or caring about things that don't matter. And I was thinking about, like, you figure you've been in these countries, bro. We've seen where women don't even have any semblance of rights. They don't even have the idea of rights. And what do? They fight their way to go west if they can, so they can get the freedom to live and breathe and grow and compete and do all of these types of things, only to have those things taken from them in many aspects by removing the very idea of womanhood and really degrading it down to just a decision. And I'm like, I have a problem with that. Like I said, and I love everybody, you know, evenly, but I have to say that when I look at it, I'm like, man, this is difficult for me, because I know, like, I look at my mother, man, all the things that she's fought through as a woman, you know, in the industry and real estate and business and all kind of stuff. You know, I look at my grandparents. I got so many strong women in my family, and just people I've experienced, and to have them. You know, I've dated a female, you know, dated a female athlete, and I know the work she put in. You know what I mean, to get to where she was. And she'll tell you in a heartbeat, man, but a dude coming there, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? Like that, it's just different, you know. And I think, like I said, like thinking about, like, we get rid of these terms. Like, it feels like we're trying to erase womanhood, and women are too far. To me, women are far too valuable to just take all of their accolades, everything they've achieved, everything they do, and everything they've done, and to just systematically push them out of society. That's
Well, it's flat out disrespectful, is what it is.
yeah,
Like I
just
said,
like, yeah.
it's a symptom of this neoliberal, neo-feminist movement, that it went too far and it gained
Right.
so much momentum that they couldn't stop,
Mm.
because they started down roads that they should have never gone down. You know,
Yeah.
instead of getting to a stopping point, it just continued to roll. They're like, well, if you accepted this, you have to accept this, and if you accepted this, and you have to accept this, and they help and they fuel each other around. I was actually talking about feminism with somebody the other day, and like trying to explain like why the modern feminist is really killing women's rights when it should be helping women's rights is a really hard conversation to have, especially when you're a man. You're just trying to explain it from our point of view, where it's
Right.
become such a toxic culture of anti-men that you're creating more bad men than what we had before,
Right.
because they just don't want to put up with it. And
Yeah.
now it's to the point where now they know, they're like, oh, well, you know, I don't have to succeed as a man. I'll just be a woman next year and I'll go compete, you know, and
Right.
I'll just I'll break all the records, and I'll have gold medals and everything
Right.
like that. To the fact where people were making fun of it. I think it was up in Canada. There was like a powerlifting coach that
Yeah.
just decided, he's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm gonna go compete as a woman. And he didn't even
Yeah.
try to like pretend he was a woman. He showed up looking like a dude, dressed like
Right.
a dude, said he was a woman,
But he registered as a woman.
destroyed,
Yeah.
absolutely destroyed all the competition, and just kind of
Right.
rolled out. You know, as
And
a
you know,
statement.
my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know what's interesting about that story with that coach up in Canada? If it's the same one I'm thinking about, the record was actually already held by a trans
Oh.
man or woman. So the record had been broken by a trans woman like the year before or something. Trans woman, whatever. I always get that mixed up because it's confusing to me. But it was already held by a trans person, and then he came in and then crushed that record. So to me, I think about all the women that have worked their entire lives to get to that point, only to have the record now twice taken from them, and it's even further away from them now. It's like you get all the way to the finish line only to have somebody move the line on you.
Yeah, I mean, and like I kind of understand why he did what he did, and I respect that. He made it a joke, but now basically two guys just went out there and they made a mockery of everything that women had worked for, and I think that's we're gonna see that have a more devastating effect on our younger generation of young women growing up.
Yeah.
You know, I can just kind of see them being like, well, what's the point in trying? Because anything I want to do, now a man can just come and do it.
Right.
So, and I think that all goes back to I think that all goes back to I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I think that really all just goes back to, you know, we're waging this war with each other in the United States to basically see who can be more ridiculous, because now it's a competition to see who can be more conservative or who can be more liberal. But there's no like middle ground. There's no like, okay, some things we do need to be more conservative with, some things we need to be more liberal with. Now it's just you're so far in every direction that it's, you know, it's almost radicalization. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's radical in both ways. Yeah. It's radical. It's interesting because my boy said something very interesting. He was talking about the other day about, and he's not really particularly political. He's not really into all the cultural stuff. He just kind of watches. And he was like, man, it just feels like it's just so corrupt and broke just for no reason. Like people are just extra crazy just because. Like, you know, and I'm like, well, bro, yeah. I mean, we have the reality is there is no depth to the depravity of the heart, right? There's no depth to the darkness that is the depths that we can reach as human beings, you know. And it's like I said, bro, you gotta think about it. Like when you really understand, like we've talked about this before, like when you talk about like